Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Find a Moment podcast, where we navigate the space between ideals and everyday life. We are your hosts, Gretchen Roberts and Jennifer Ford, and we look forward to finding a moment with you today.
Hello, welcome to Find a Moment. We are kicking off our summer book club series, and Gretchen and I are here with a sweet friend, Keelia Clarkson. And so we are getting ready to jump in to talk about her book, Chapter One, again. Gretchen is connected with Keelia through family connections there, and we would just love for Keelia for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll start talking about the book.
Yeah,
Welcome.
well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm Keelia. I am an actress and an author, originally from Los Angeles. Lived there for the first 20 some odd years. Then I moved to New York. And ever since then, I've kind of been bouncing around between New York and Colorado. I met my husband, Nathan, back in Los Angeles in an acting class. And the rest from there is history. But but yeah, I fell in love with stories at a very early age. I remember wanting to act from basically the time that I can remember.
Mm.
So it's just always stories have always just been really just kind of part of who I am and very important to me. So I'm really excited to dive into my new novel, which just came out.
Yay! So exciting. So, speaking of chapter one again, can you tell us kind of how this story came about, or kind of what was the process of Jane coming to life in your mind?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you can tell, but I definitely wrote a lot of myself in Jane. A lot of the, questions that she is asking throughout the novel are asked. A lot of the insecurities that she is facing are absolutely have been real to me and many still are. But it's funny, it started actually as a screenplay. I just had this idea of like it would be fun to have basically a movie that took place in a bookstore.
Mm.
And without giving anything away about the plot, there's kind of a significant, meeting between my protagonist, Jane, and her former high school crush in a bookstore. And that was kind of what the movie was going to be. It was going to be all of the conversations that they have over the course of their being there. But I was kind of struggling with figuring out how to tell all of the story that I wanted to tell just there in that bookstore and only with so few characters. And I started realizing that there was a little more story that kind of needed to take place outside the bookstore. And I was talking to my husband about it, and eventually, it had occurred to me like, I wonder if this could ever be a novel. But something in me was just going, I don't know. I don't know that I can, possibly pull that off. I don't know that I could ever, you know, really write a novel and finish it and do a good job and all of all of the, self-doubt kind of things
Mhm.
that come trickling in. And so I was talking to my husband about it, and funnily enough, he said, I think you should turn the story into a novel.
Mm.
And so then I kind of took that as, oh, I wasn't wrong for thinking about that. I was wrong for saying no.
Mm.
Uh, so yeah, so I ended up following his advice there, and I'm so glad that I did because it allowed me to explore basically outside the bookstore and even further into Jane's story and her different relationships with people, in the town and outside of the town. And it what I wanted to touch on really was, we start with Jane is someone who is really ambitious. She has all of these dreams of writing her own novel. That's been kind of her always her whys because I'm going to write a novel one day. And she's working as a ghostwriter in the beginning of the story. And so she kind of has it all, she kind of has the life that looks like it means something, like it's a very impressive life. But what I wanted to explore was what does it look like if someone who looks like they have it all is still unsatisfied with their life and still
Mhm.
unsatisfied with the story that they feel like they're telling. So yeah, that was kind of the engine behind the why I decided to start writing it, and that was what I was hoping to explore.
It's interesting that you say initially that your plan was to make it into a screenplay because when Gretchen and I were talking about the book before you hopped on, she said, I could totally see this as a movie. And I thought, oh, I would love to see this play out in Colorado at Christmas and just, the bookstore and the coffees and just sweet. I mean, I could totally see this being a Christmas movie on repeat for our family
Well, from your
completely.
mouth to God's ears, I hope that would be incredible. I hope that happens.
Hello, Hallmark. So sweet. Well, I kind of made the assumption because I mean, what I do know about your life, I could see that a lot of yourself was written into Jane,
Yeah.
but then there's like the questions and the insecurities. Those are things I don't know about you. So to hear you say like that is kind of some of your experience that you were able to put into who she is. What is it about Jane that is different from you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I feel like all of the big picture things about Jane are essentially me. Um,
Mm,
I think all of the kind of I think all of the ambitions and all of the desires to feel like she's telling a meaningful
mm,
story with her life and the constant kind of insecurities or doubts or wondering, can I tell a good story? I feel like that's very much part of kind of my own story. But I would say our differences are definitely that I guess it's really that I just found God earlier than she did.
mm,
Yeah, I put her at 29. I put her on kind of the precipice of turning 30, which is, a kind of a big milestone that I think a lot of us are scared about at first. And then what I've heard is that it's not that scary. So okay, I'll trust that. But yeah, Jane and I are the same age right now. And so yeah, I found God a little bit earlier. I found God in my early 20s, as opposed to my late 20s. But so I would say I'm further along in my journey there. But I think so many of the big picture things are very much me. Now, the smaller details, being from a small town, being an only child, things like that are not my story at all. But yeah, I would say that's the main difference is that I found God earlier in my story.
mm,
I had such a connection with Jane in that, in the whole beginning part when, she's talking about, she's basically kind of saying like, I've gotten all the things I've accomplished the things I wanted to accomplish, but yet I still have this feeling of, like she said one part, a commoner among princesses. And just that feeling of belonging and that feeling of like, really, it really matters. And the mountaintop kind of feeling like you would think the mountaintop would feel. And I related to like when I went to medical school and I remember getting into medical school in that first year and thinking like, this is it. Like I've arrived at where I've worked so hard so many years to get here and like this vision and then realizing like, wow, this doesn't feel like I expected it to feel. And
Mm.
not even being able to really pinpoint what exactly it was. But that's ultimately what led me back to God. But I think God uses those things and like allows us to even achieve what we think we want
Yeah,
to then show us like, yeah, but that's still not the missing part.
absolutely. I think you're absolutely right about that. And I love that you and Jane kind of have parallels and you checked off all of the boxes. You
Mhm.
did it. You climbed the mountain and it didn't feel like you thought it would.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think our desire to do something significant is actually I think it's something that we were designed with. I think it's a good thing. But I think that our obsession with kind of like, is this going to make me feel significant? Is this going to make me feel like my life means something? Kind of, I would say it stems from our unwillingness to search for that significance within just the knowledge of being created in the image of God. And I think we're looking for exterior sources to help us feel like, okay, so my story does matter. So I do matter. So, the all of the boxes that I checked off do add up to something. I feel like we're so often going to exterior sources, a promotion, how many likes you get, versus just searching for that in a place that is going, a person that is going to fulfill that forever. We're wanting to satisfy a hunger that there's just no way that we're going to be able to satisfy it in
Mm-hmm.
this world without God, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many of those. I felt like just really core universal themes and struggles of like expectations and belonging and fulfillment and meaning that I feel like you give time and depth to each of those. I feel like sometimes I'm reading and you can kind of sense it's kind of glossed over, like, oh, it's referred to that there's that part. But I really felt like there was just this depth of exploration of each of those kind of core longings and struggles that I think we all have in our lives in various forms. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so. I think belonging is another huge theme in the book, which is why I decided to set it in a small town, which is it's I have never lived in a tiny town, but funnily enough, I have always been kind of drawn to them
Mm.
in the media that I interact with. I always loved Gilmore Girls growing up, and
Yes.
um, yeah. And, cozy mysteries that take place in a small town. And, there's something about small towns and that it plays such a big role in the story, the town of Avila Falls, which is where Jane is from originally. It's the place that she feels like she, escaped. It's the place where she felt like she couldn't possibly mean something because how could you live a life that mattered in such a tiny place, But what I wanted to confront her with was kind of the sense of belonging that is inherent in a lot of small towns, the sense of belonging to a place and a people that care about you and know your name and know what's going on in your life. So
Hmm.
that was definitely something that I wanted to touch on.
Hmm. I grew up in a town of 3,000 people in Illinois. And so there was so
Wow.
much in my mind also reading. I'm like, oh, so I am going back this summer now.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I'm so jealous. What a fun grow up.
And I loved the things that don't change.
Yeah.
So much in our lives change. And so that was something that I love about a small town is there is so much there that doesn't change.
Yeah.
That can, as a child, can be frustrating for you and feel like you want to get out of. But Jennifer and I were both talking about Jane and Liv both going back to their childhood bedrooms.
Yeah.
And just the comfort of that environment and that returning to that. Oh, so, so good.
Yeah. That was another book for me. It's just I wanted people to feel comforted when they read this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned live, and that was kind of what my next question was going to be. Without giving, so how do we talk about these things without giving a lot of like spoilers, right? But
Yeah.
I really loved the decision that you made to not just bring Liv in, but to allow this relationship to develop where there was sort of this parallel experience of what they were learning
Hmm.
to value.
Yeah.
And was there, with there being parallels in your life to the story, was there anyone in your life who had a similar influence, or where you both kind of found yourselves kind of realizing, oh, I think I thought I wanted this, but I'm finding that my heart is really just longing for something simple. I guess just talk a little bit about Liv and your decision to bring her in. And if you've got a personal Liv, tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I wish we all had a personal Liv. Liv is she's the pop star that in the beginning of the book, Jane is assigned to ghostwrite a memoir for her. And when we first meet Liv, she is like kind of the like biggest new pop star. If whoever pops into your mind, that's who Liv is. And so we kind of assume, Jane assumes, that Liv is just, a pop star who sings kind of cute songs and she's probably doesn't have much to her. But really quickly we find out that Liv actually is struggling with this feeling of, yeah, I actually did achieve everything on the biggest level, on a level that basically no one else does. And it doesn't really satisfy.
Mm.
And so they end up having much deeper kind of conversations than, Jane initially thought that they would. And the reason I wanted to incorporate Liv is it felt to me like it wouldn't totally explore this feeling of I did all of the right things and I achieved everything and it doesn't fulfill. It wouldn't exactly, for me, strike the same way if it was only Jane discovering that by herself, given that she still actually hasn't written the novel. She still does have things that she does want to do that she hasn't been able quite to do. So I really wanted to incorporate someone that could speak with basically the most authority on the subject. But I wanted to give Jane a kind of a friend that she never knew to expect. She has a couple of friendships with, women her own age in the beginning of the novel, but they also don't quite fulfill the way that she was hoping that a friendship would. So I thought it was important to give Jane a friend, but also a kind of another voice of wisdom alongside the others that I planted throughout the novel that she could speak with the most authority on kind of Jane's biggest journey. Out of all of the journeys that Jane is taking in this novel, this is kind of the biggest through line that's, going to continue throughout the novel, basically.
And I love the multi-generational connections that she has because she has her friends, who are kind of her age and live, and then Edith. I love Edith. How did you come about that relationship with Edith?
Well, I wanted Edith to kind of be like the Gandalf. She is
Mm.
the older, very wise, basically home to Jane. Edith is the owner of the bookstore in Avila Falls, and the bookstore is kind of the place where it's the only place where Jane really felt like she belonged growing up. And so she would spend so many hours there as a kid. And so Edith really kind of became a grandmother to her. And well, first of all, I loved the idea of this not being a totally young book. I did want there to be some variance in ages and experiences that I could try to explore. And so I I really loved having Edith as kind of a lot of times the person that tethered Jane
Mhm.
and was always there for her to act as home, but also to act as the person who knows her the best and offers the kind of wisdom that I think we all really long for in our lives. That I think we all so, wish that we had an Edith, and some of us are very lucky to have an Edith. So yeah, I think I wanted to explore a person's story who is in their 80s, who's, getting up there in terms of age, and I wanted to explore her story and basically what she has so much to offer the younger generations in Avila Falls. So yeah, I really enjoyed writing Edith. I She was probably the character that surprised me the most, that I just loved her and loved writing the scenes with her. Yeah, I love Edith.
I am anxiously awaiting to see who will be cast as Edith when this makes it to the screen, because
Yeah.
she's probably going to be the most precious character out of everybody. We're all going to think, who's my Edith? Who's my Edith? Really sweet. I loved that the bookstore was, and then there were books, because, and then there were none. What, we have two teenage girls, and both of them had to read, and then there were none
Oh,
in some of their literature classes through high school. And both of them, it was one of their favorites. And so when I saw the name of the bookstore, I was like, girls, look,
yeah.
so fun.
Yeah,
Are you
I
an Agatha Christie fan?
love Agatha Christie. She's one of my favorite writers, and I absolutely loved And Then There Were None. I have a friend that has read literally all of Agatha Christie, and so
Wow.
I'll be like, okay, what's the next one that I should read? But yeah, I love Agatha Christie. I would love to write a mystery one day. But I don't know that it'll be nearly as good as hers. Even half as good as hers, I'm not sure. But I would love to try my hand at it.
Oh,
I think one of our girls told me that And Then There Were None was written when she was a teenager.
Oh my goodness, you're kidding.
I, I'll have to verify that. I'll have to fact check that.
Okay.
But it's impressive. So, will you? So, this is part of a series, right?
Yeah.
So, what can you tell us about how the series will unfold? Like, what's kind of your vision or your plan right now? Because Gretchen and I were saying, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it was sort of like this Wendellberry, like Port William thing where each story kind of focuses on one person, but then at the same time, I don't want to let go of being inside Jane's mind. So, what can you tell us about how things will unfold for your series?
Yeah, well, the second book is written. Well, at least the first draft is.
Ah, yay.
Um, so I'm sure there's a lot that's going to be changed between now and when it actually comes out. But what I can say is that we are going to continue on the journey of a lot of the questions that Jane is asking. We're going to dive even deeper into them, and Jane is going to face some insecurities and questions and doubts that she actually hasn't faced before.
mm.
And it's definitely going to be it's going to put her through a lot. But we are going to see a lot of familiar faces and even more new ones, actually. It was really fun to explore even more characters in this second book that I hope will also become loved by readers. But yeah, we're going to see a lot of familiar faces. Some of them are very expected, others not so expected. So yeah, that is what I can share right now. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where book two ends up once it hits shelves a little over a year from now.
Oh, wow. Yay.
Ah,
So maybe next summer or a summer book club or fall.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited because there's pretty much every character. I'm like, okay, I want more of their story. I want, you could totally, oh my goodness, bring her New York friends to Colorado and
That would be interesting. Yeah.
oh,
one question I had when you were talking about how your next one is coming up, and you said, I don't know if what it is now will be what it is when it releases, because of course you go through editing and all of that.
Yeah.
What is different from this version
Oh.
versus what your original manuscript was? Like, are you able to, were there any, other than like obvious like edits for clarity or whatever, were
Yeah.
there any significant changes that you made?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I have to think about this. I'm trying to remember what draft one was. I think really the main changes. would just be things like diving deeper into certain characters' stories. One of the things that I have an incredible editor, love working with her. And one of the things that she wanted me to spend a little more time with was I start off with kind of talking about how Jane's parents are very sweet, but they really don't understand her and anything about like why she chose the life that she did and why she wants to write books and things like that. And they stayed in the small town. They work as grocery store manager and a nurse, and so they stayed in the town and they lived what she thought of as just ordinary lives. And so one of the things that she had me dive into a little more was kind of bringing giving their relationship, her relationship with her parents, a little more of an arc and a
Mm,
little more of kind of it starts off here and it is transformed and it ends up here. And
mm,
she ends up looking at her parents and the lives that they chose and thinking, they chose beautiful lives.
mm,
And I thought they were so simple and ordinary. And I look at the lives that they chose and they've been committed to each other for all of these decades. And they served their community and they loved me as best as they knew how, even if they never truly, I felt like understood me. And so, yeah, I think that was a big thing that she said. I think we need really kind of an arc with their relationship. And I'm so glad that she said that because
mm,
I think it would not be the story that I feel like it was meant to be without that. Yeah, so I would say that's one change that comes to mind. And I think I think she also asked for a little more live as well. I think I added like two more live scenes. So
mm, mm.
yeah.
That's
So yeah, those were the changes. It's always fun to see, how your book begins and where it ends up and kind of
awesome.
how it gets closer to the story that it was always supposed to be.
Yeah. Speaking of her, Jane's relationship with her parents, like in the beginning of, I believe it was her trip when she went back home, she had kind of mentioned, I don't even know if my parents remember that I said I was writing a novel. And then they asked her about it, and it meant so much to her. And then, she extended her trip. But then by the end of the story, when her parents would introduce her to someone, they would say, she's writing a novel. And it meant so much to her and I can kind of relate to this too. Like, to even as an adult, as a professional, my wings are, I'm out of the nest, I'm flying on my own, but it still is meaningful to have the approval and the encouragement of my parents, that they would see what matters to me and what I'm working on. And I loved that mattered to Jane, and that they got to know her and what mattered to her, and they started like kind of building that into how they introduced her to people in the community, and just
Yeah,
connecting that to
I
who
I
she was.
love I loved that as well. I loved kind of feeling like both of them grew, not just Jane who
Mm,
changed
mhm,
kind of her tune on what she thought about her parents, but I also loved finding ways that her parents could show her these small acts of love that actually just meant the
mm,
world. So,
mhm, mhm.
I
Very
loved her
sweet.
developing appreciation of them and like just watching the show with them, the
yeah.
police show on TV and just her kind of appreciating them for who they are. Like as a parent, that was something I was like, oh, because I think you go
Mhm.
through that with your adult children of them kind of
Yeah.
thinking, oh, you're having all the thoughts about, how they're raised and just kind of questioning and coming into their own. But then to see that her coming back to kind of appreciating their rhythms and routines and entering into that was so, so good. And one of my favorites was when I laughed out loud when the chicken macaroni casserole,
Yes.
the number of times, like if my kids say one time they like something, I was just laughing. I'm like, that is so me. I'll be like, here's your favorite thing I made for you. I just loved her sweet mom makeup.
I know her parents were so fun for me to write. They just they're kind of funny little quirks and the things that made them so lovable and silly and sweet. Yeah, they were really fun for me to write.
Great. Yeah, there's so many relationships like that. It's friendship, it's potential dating, it's the parents, and then Edith. I mean, there's so, like you said, there's something for everybody to connect to in this story. It's so great.
Oh, thank you so much. That honestly means a lot because that was my hope.
It's so great. Loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing and for writing this amazing novel. It is just so good and so many things to talk about and to relate to. And I love that, Jennifer had said that she's going to have both of her girls read it too. And I love that it's a book that you can share with anybody because the content is just so good and rich, and there's nothing questionable or
Yeah, that it was definitely my hope that this would be a book that you could pass on to your teenage daughter or your mom, and everyone could find someone to connect to and find something in the story that felt like it was for them.
yeah,
So,
so good.
Love that. Keelia, tell us where people can find you.
oh yeah, you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm at Keelia Clarkson. And then my website is keelia.me. You can connect with me there as well. And yeah, that's where I am.
Wonderful. We'll have all of that linked in our show notes, and we will connect with you on social media too. Keelia, thank you for taking this time. I know that you are several hours earlier than us on this Saturday morning that we're recording. So thank you so much. I hope that you are just encouraged, and I hope that you get lots of sales. And I hope that this conversation gets the word out to every generation just about this sweet story that I think people of all seasons of life can connect to and relate to and be encouraged and inspired by. So we're thankful for you being brave and putting your gift and your imagination and your heart into something that can just move people. So thank you. Your story matters and this story matters. So thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very
so much
much.
for your such kind words. They just mean so much. It is obviously it's scary putting a book out into the world, but I've
Yeah,
just been so overwhelmed with how sweet everyone has been and supportive. So thank you so much for having me here, and what a lovely discussion we had. It was so much fun for me.
great. We're very grateful for you. So, for our listeners, if you have not heard, this is part of the Find a Moment Summer Book Club series. This is the second episode. Our first episode is a conversation that Gretchen and I had just discussing the themes of chapter one again. So, if you haven't listened to that, please go back and listen. And then our next two episodes for Summer Book Club will be discussing Andy Colbert's book, Try Softer. And so we will have more information about that in our show notes. And we hope that you will join us on social media. Thank you for finding a moment with us, Keelia.